Hey, this is Nick from Remedy667.com, the best place on the internet for horror-themed fonts and typefaces. Check it out. Today is Horror Font Friday, and we're taking a look at the lettering from the, well, I guess the poster, the intro, the trailer. We got this sample from the trailer for the Corpse Grinders. And we're going to go ahead and expand this piece of lettering into an alphabet, because that's what we do here. I'm going to go ahead and just get started. And the first thing I'm going to do is ungroup it. I'm going to get this G kind of on the same height as the other letters here. Same with the C. Now this familiarly looks like a font that I can't think of the name right now. It's a very 1960s feeling thing that yeah, I don't know, but it's like hand drawn in the logo. So this is kind of a hand drawn take of something that was an actual typeface. I need this G to dip a little bit more. See how the R's are all a little different? Like, that's the S I want. Oh, sorry. The film that we've got going today is the Unearthly from 1957. And that will accompany us on our adventure. I like that we have a different lowercase e. Leads me to think I was originally going to use this T as the T for it and keep that lowercase, but because we have two duplicate E's, I think it that kind of gives us a little more options, maybe a little more confusion. And let's grab this R because I like that R. All right, so this is what we're starting off with for our letters. These three go in order, which is nice of them. Whoops. So there we go. So this is where we're starting. Everything is very high-waisted. And there doesn't appear to be like a lot of very good rules at first glance in this font. Like we've got our, like these big bowls on the C, the E, all the letters appear to like kind of have this apex that they're moving toward until you get to the I, which is kind of straight up and down, and the N and the P. So I think because it's hand drawn, there is some strangeness going on here. So, and I think we're gonna roll with that. I think that's gonna make it easier to keep kind of loose. And this should be a pretty fun one. So I'm gonna try and start off with the B. And for that, I'm going to use the D and the P. So first I want to cut that down. I want to cut the D through the middle. I want to cut the P through the middle because I'm going to use the E for where I want these actually based. So you notice some interesting things happening kind of here with this shape is I can actually cut that in. This is going to roll over a little bit just to give us a little more space there. Let's pull this over here, and this one will go up all the way to there. So I believe this film, the one in the background that we're watching, not Corpse Grinders. I think Corpse Grinders is a movie where they kill cats or something. But that didn't really seem appropriate. But The Unearthly is a Tor Johnson film. So that's kind of cool if you're a fan. We have a Tor Johnson Halloween mask that we had got at a yard sale a couple years ago, and is in pretty rough shape. The guy that we got it from is pretty cool. He is like one of those, like, you know, get the yard all decorated with the graveyard and stuff. We do the same thing. So he had used the Tor Johnson mask on something outside. It was very weathered. So since then, like, we used to have this zombie in the front yard that like was supposed to look like it was coming out of the ground. Looked kind of cheesy. But now we put a Tor Johnson mask on it, and it looks pretty cool. In fact, maybe next year we'll give him like a shirt. He won't have the weird plastic zombie shirt looking thing. Get him looking more like he's coming out of the ground, out of the grave. So we're just sort of going through these letters, and we're not really paying a whole lot of mind to how they are looking. Not like, oh, I don't really care, they can look like crap, but like I'm not paying a whole lot of attention to like, oh, this really needs to line up like this, because anything like that. This is very much a very loose. Like the rules are just constantly broken in the sample. Like you know, it's wild. So making a J right now with an upside down N and a C that is backwards. I think I'm just gonna throw it in like that. Cut it down. That side's gonna go up. So I actually, this bowl should just smooth out a little bit. And I feel like that is kind of the vibe or whatever I get when I look at how this lettering's done. It's just kind of like, oh, kind of how does it look like it should go? I believe this is, the original font is kind of like an Art Deco thing, but they kind of went off in their own direction with it and came up with something that looks very cool and very unorthodox for a piece of lettering. Uh-oh. Tor Johnson's got somebody. Much more terrifying than some of his Ed Wood films. Alright, so the M, I like that the N is kind of a lowercase letter. And I'm going to perhaps keep playing on that theme with the N. And this should smooth that way a little bit. And probably get rid of that and go up. By just duplicating the M, it's also going to become the U the same way. Except some things that are going to happen in the U is, so it has this taper, right, that we talked about, the apex, I think I called it. And this happened with the C too, is I'm just going to go ahead and kind of reverse that so that it gets a little, not that thin, a little more even at the top, and perhaps a little more wide at the bottom. Whoops. We are going to get this queue going. This is going a lot faster than I thought it would. I knew it would go pretty fast because the sample involves so many good examples of kind of how we want the letters to look. Did you see that? Grip. Let's go ahead and lock our guide layer before I start accidentally pulling things into it. So our T, I want to build probably from the F, because in the E, where I was originally thinking would be a good idea to borrow from, it has that apex tapering. And I don't want that. I feel like the T has to follow more the rules of the P, where it's going to be a lot more of a straight letter without any tapering. All right, so the treatment of the A. So we've got the A, the V, the everything that we have left is kind of like these letters that would normally be like your slanted vertical. So we don't have an example of how these look, which kind of leaves it up to interpretation, for better or worse. I'm going to go ahead and do the double K for the X and kind of we'll just see what that looks like and see if that looks like something that could make sense as a baseline for things like the Y. Sorry, I'm going for checking the width. I feel like this should be a little thinner. And I also feel like I would like the bottom to be a little wider, mainly because the way that this treatment had gone in other letters. Like, I want to kind of look at, not to the P and the R like we did when we built the X originally, but I want to kind of look to letters like the E for the bottom, especially, just to get that bottom weight. And not necessarily that big, but like, see, now look at that. That really lends itself to kind of what we were looking at when we were like, oh, it's got to kind of be smaller than the X. Whoops. So whoa, somebody in this movie is very upset. So a little thicker at the bottom than at the top, which, I mean, it doesn't look super great, but I feel like at the same time it does work with this lettering. No, I want these. Just gonna bring that in a little bit to echo that taper. And this inside is just gonna get a little thinner. Not to fully match the bottom, but to give it more of a match in shape a little bit. This Y is high-waisted. So the base of that will come up a little bit. It's a big dog walking day, apparently. We are going to use this E that is already cut. Nice. So this is a part where it's definitely going to get tricky. We had sort of avoided a lot of the what did I say? Diagonal stems? Is that right? The non-vertical stems. Transform, let's reflect that piece. And that we just took from the X, and that feels actually... It definitely works with this XYZ situation we've got going on here, but does it actually work with the rest of the letters? That we will check in a moment. Let's go ahead and get the A, the M, and the V taken care of. For the M, I am just going to double the N. And we're going to lower that second one just a little bit, just to give it a little bit of variation. Also going to smooth that out a little differently and get rid of this little dimple that's happening over there. That kind of gives that letter its own character. Now we just need an A and a V. So I was thinking a little bit about the A, and in my mind I feel like it's got to be a mix between an H and an O, which feels a little weird and also might be tricky when we get to letters like the U. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this A down. And the H is just going to come right in like that. So that's a pretty terrible looking A, but it also definitely has the hand-drawn feel. that the rest of these letters have. So I think that's kind of important. I'm going to go straight down on the inside. Not sure what exactly to call the inside here. I keep thinking, oh, the between the legs measurement, but that term's for fasteners, not for type. Or maybe it is. So basically just trying to exaggerate that angle. It's a little tricky, because it's hard to draw in those subtle angles. So let's go ahead and tilt it a little bit. Tilt it back. Somehow lost that little dot in the middle of the A for a bit. Just going to round that out a little. And I feel like that's a good looking A, which means our V is going to be similar. Oh, I can't run it from that though. I think what I'm going to do is take the O and cut it there and there, and then we are going to match it together. That keeps it's rounded, but so's the top of our A. So that kind of works with what we've established as the rule. And we're just going to go ahead and clean up the top a little bit. And that doesn't necessarily look like your traditional V, but I think it satisfies a lot of kind of what we're doing with this lettering. Now let's see what the XYZ situation looks like. We'll go ahead and throw this in font self and type some stuff just to double check and see how those look in context. All right, so looking at this, I think the X is pretty convincing. The Z is a little weird. The Z feels like the 2 should probably actually look. So what I think I'm going to do is go in and we're going to make that much more extreme. We'll do a couple different things. I like how the V turned out. I think that makes sense. You see it here in the word 5. Boxing. Wizards, the Z looks good, but lazy, it doesn't necessarily make sense to me. The A is okay. It might need to slant to the left a little bit. So we'll take a look at that. What did we say? This needs to go to the left just a little bit. We'll go 2 over to the left. And we talked about doing a couple different versions of the Z just to see which one works better. The first one was thinking of deleting those, which will in turn make this center part a little more extreme of an angle. I also kind of considered pulling the waist up a little bit, and doing that as a separate one, but I think a combination of the both might be kind of exactly where we want to be with this. Whoa, John Carradine's on the screen talking about something. I feel like this Z might actually have it. I may want to do something with the A, like the inside might need to have a little bit less of a taper, more of a taper. I don't know. But let's go ahead and re-import these, and we're going to replace everything, which is going to give us a totally new Z. I feel like that Z works a lot better. And I like the A being straight up like that. I think that also works out a lot better. The M is weird. It feels a little too heavy at the top. I know that we just duplicated the N, but the N, because there's less volume in there, there's only one shape, it's not as overpowering, but I feel like the M here, probably just want to go in here and just move some of these up a little bit. Like that, maybe. And it's not super noticeable. Which is good, because the name of the game is not trying to, you know, overthink this or make too many changes. It's, you know, just get it looking nice. So this is going to be our last round of this. Remember, in the word sympathizing, the M just looks a little too heavy there. So we are going to hit the A to Z button again and watch the M. It's going to change. Nothing else will change. See, it just went up a tiny bit. Go back into advanced. I think that already looks better looking at hamburger font div and minimum. Like, minimum's a little tricky because it's working with the M. And you know what else I'm noticing? Crap. The U. I'm noticing U. Sympathizing, it's much better. So I feel like the weight of the M now is similar to the weight in the H and the A and the P. I really need the bottom of the U to come up, and I can't believe I didn't think about that earlier when I originally drew this, because the U is breaking the rules. So I'm gonna cut that right there. Just gonna use this for the interior. And we're not redrawing anything on the U, we're just raising that waist. And that could have been why minimum looked so interesting. I feel like I'm going to do one more thing. In the Y, I want to round these a little bit more, because I feel like the Y has a stiffness that the X has, but I feel like it works more for the X, because the X is a character that doesn't necessarily come in as much. When it does, it's like, even in a standard font or alphabet, the X is already kind of a character that has a very unique look compared to the rest of your letters. But the Y necessarily not so much. Like, the Y feels like it should kind of flow more with the rest of the letters. I mean, it is sometimes a vowel. So I'm just going to smooth that Y out a little bit. And here, I'm going to smooth the Z out too, because I really like the way the Z looks. So now let's just kind of clean it a little bit. That way we're not starting off in the world with some Messy looking Z. I don't know. I have a lot of weird... I don't know how this Y is going to look. A to Z. Let's replace. I think that Y works. The U definitely looks heavier at the bottom. I like that. The Y feels weird. But I think I'm going to leave it. I kind of like it. It's yeah. All right, so let's go. Let's do some numbers. It's been about a half an hour in here. We already said that this felt like a 2, so that's easy. Let me get my number ready. All right. And we may find that we actually would rather use something else for that. So here, this is kind of interesting because we have the very high waist. All we're really going to do is shrink the O in a little bit and shrink the top part in a little bit. Can't really move it up or down because that would kind of violate what we are working with here. There, it's just going to get a little thing in the tip top. All right, so that Z being a 2, probably not going to happen. Looking at the way this S is working for us, these I all want to reflect. Not that one, this one. So this is how our 2 will actually look. It's a beautiful day outside. I can hear everybody motorcycling around. I think I am going to mow the lawn. And perhaps take the bottles back after I finish this. Because nothing like doing some chores at the end of a good week. Alright, so this, for the 3, unfortunately, is not going to work. It's too big. So that needs to come up just a little bit. And I think I want to ride it into that piece. The bottom... This is a very wide one, and I like it. But I think I'm going to keep it thin. And just group that and use that as my 3. The 4, I'm going to do what we normally do. Did you... The 4 is just going to come in a little bit. It's also kind of sprinkling low-key, which is probably the only thing that would keep me from, or that might end up keeping me from mowing the lawn. Let's go ahead and put that on the proper. And let's hide our guide layer. I want the 4 to just be a little thinner. There's some science fiction excitement happening on the screen. That 5 looks pretty good. The 6 should be rather interesting. I think I'm going to actually just handle it. So that bit would come in like this, and that bit will go out a little bit. I feel like that's probably how the 6 would look. And we'll take a little bit away from it right there. The 7 is a little tricky. Essentially, that is going to come in. This is going to go out that way. And these angles are going to change. The 7 is a kind of a trickier one to think about here. Feel like the 7 kind of feels like it's sitting on a pedestal. The 9 is another one that we are going to hand draw.
Good morning, Doctor. I'm going on upstairs. Grace will see you.
That actually looks pretty good. And that's going to roll in a little better. All right, so coming from the S, actually let's not delete that O just yet, because I think this might actually be the way that I want to draw my 8.
Mark seems worried about her.
Why?
He seems to think she's ill or something.
Nonsense, my dear. She made a perfect recovery, and I released her. I the train this morning myself. She left rather early, so she asked me to make her goodbye.
I'm so happy for her.
Grace, you've been such a kind father, Rachel. I hate to have anything stand.
I feel like this is probably the way the 8 should go. I want to merge this just so it'll be a little more malleable. And this side,
I don't understand.
My dear, Mark is a sick man.
goes in.
Any incident might provoke him into committing an act of violence. I'm watching him carefully and trying to help him. You must help too, my dear.
How can I?
I wanted that to be a little more rounded. I think the one on top, excuse me, needs to actually be a little thinner.
I'll do as you ask, Doctor.
You must look after you too, my dear.
You're so good to me, Dr. Conway.
As I should. You need understanding.
Like that.
Understanding and protection. Above all, you must disregard anything.
I understand, Doctor.
All right. That's pretty good looking number set. The 6 doesn't feel super balanced. Let's make this just more rounded and this top part more in like that.
Great. Leave her alone.
You're sounding like a jealous woman.
That's exactly what I am.
All right, on to the next one. All right. We are going to go ahead and get started right into here. These are going to work in the same old school fashion that they always have. I'm going to duplicate that. The reason being is because we can't necessarily go in, whoops, any further. Like, it wouldn't make sense to make these, sorry. I'm like,
What do you want?
Chris, I'm sorry to break in like this, but it's the only chance to prove I'm telling you the truth.
Please get out.
Don't you understand? I'm trying to help you. Look, I've got positive proof
it wouldn't make sense to try and make these less
Leave me alone.
than what exists in the high-waisted version. So for this, I do want to cut it twice because even though the font is very high-waisted, once we get to the next portion where we are looking at our equals signs and our math, those aren't going to be sitting on the baseline. So they don't necessarily need to be large like the bottom. They could be a lot smaller. They're just going to need to sit a lot higher. All right, we'll go ahead and take a look at this. This should be chunky, like the 5 is suggesting. And I feel like not cutting it in like we normally do is probably beneficial in a font like this. But what I am going to do is I'm going to bring it up a little bit higher because the weight of the bottom of the letters, I don't think it's going to get in the way of anything. Our S set is going to be pretty straightforward. We are going to take a little of the taper away from the outside, just so it'll follow like the rules of the H. I was gonna stop this one short, like when I got to an hour, because I did that last week, and I'm gonna try and do that a little more just for the sense of like, I don't know. I don't want to make videos that are too long. People will be like, Nick, what are you doing? But if you like them being longer, let me know, because I can keep recording. I feel like it's better for me to finish my minimum character set while I'm doing the video anyway, because if I don't, then it's not finished and I have a font that's not as complete as I would normally think it was based on what I've been doing for the past couple months. I digress. So what we're going to do with this is I'm going to spread this O just a little bit, and I'm going to select this, and I'm going to spread this quite a bit, and then we're going to just redraw some of this roundness. And smooth this roundness down a little bit. So these are going to be our copyright and registered trademark symbols, and they look like big old eggs. But one thing that's kind of interesting in this is, so because the way this font works, the C doesn't actually need to be as high-waisted right here. It can be cut right there because it's at the top. Like, imagine if you're looking at it through like an obscure lens, right? So or a funhouse mirror. Like, so when you're at that angle and everything's like tall at the bottom, as soon as you shift, everything like it, if that makes sense. The angle is different at the top, so it's not going to look high-waisted at the top. It's going to conform more to a more normal shape. The @ symbol is going to be kind of a weird one to draw with this, just because the way this S looks. So I think we're going to actually do a lot of redrawing for the @ symbol in this font. I think I want that side to smooth down, and probably also the bottom to smooth down. I want this end to come over a little bit. And that's going to kind of be it. I'm just going to add a little bit of more of an italic shape to it, because that's kind of what the @ symbol is. It's an italic that exists in a regular typeface. So kind of interesting, you know, like we make obliques a lot around here, but the lowercase a in the center of an @ symbol is an italic version of a lowercase a, which seems weird that you would say, hey, this is how this shape is going to work. It's going to be the one italic character in your font. But that's how it kind of works. So this is going to be, our M dash should actually be very long, because the length of our M is very long. For my underscore, I'm going to make that thin, because I feel like if we go back to our funhouse mirror theory, our the high-waisted part does not really continue into the base, even though it did a little bit with the cedilla. I'm not gonna die on that hill. That's not the necessarily the way I think it should always be. And I feel like the way some of the letters are drawn in this font, it's okay to have some, like, I guess play would be a good word for it. Like, you can kind of break the rules a little bit more than you can with other typefaces based on the way they were initially set, you know. And I'm also not going to make the M dash as long as the M, because I feel like that's just a lot. But I will make it that long, which is a lot longer than we normally do. All right, so I'm going to delete that. And the same way we always do with math, we are going to just make those kind of a little more squared off than everything else normally is. And we're going to start with an equal symbol. Get it even with that. Go ahead and group. And then here's the fun part. Rotate, align, align, duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. delete, group, align, rotate. Did that actually align? Okay, yeah. Duplicate, duplicate, and then we draw a little bit right there, just smoothing this out, just, and not even a lot, kind of getting that angle closer to those angles. Always, not always, but sometimes ends up having a weird kind of tip on the outside like this one had. That's fine. You can go ahead and delete it or keep it. It's up to you. If you use French parentheses and you think I'm explaining this totally wrong, go ahead and let me know. Because it's high-waisted, everything's going to sit very high. The parentheses in this typeface are going to behave rather peculiarly. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause. Or no, I'm not going to pause. We're just going to keep on keeping on. We are going to dive right into this next part. These are all equal signs in here. So I'm just going to drag one over. This is going to be a little bizarre. So move that out of the way a little bit. I thinned that up. These, I think I'm going to make them like 10. I feel like, you know, these probably aren't going to get used very much anyway, but the way this font is, it's kind of a... kind of narrow, so I don't want my angle to be too extreme for those.
Take him away. Downstairs, Lobo. Sharon, see that they're secure and then join me upstairs. Not you, my dear.
And that's good.
Going, Mark.
So
Upstairs.
I want those to come out just a tiny bit. Looking at that, probably should have made the center a little thinner just to match the weight.
Keep them here till I come back. Understand?
And I'm going to go ahead with, this is going to be our number sign. Actually just thinned it out a little bit instead of, there were a couple things I guess I could have done with that, but this needs to be way up at the top. Because the alphabet of this, it'll need to work and look proper. Everything's going to be up close to the top. I feel like I actually want to duplicate this for the S. I'm going to put the S also very close to the top, and my reasoning is the same reasoning that we ran into with our copyright and registered symbols. With the S up at the top like that, it doesn't necessarily need to have the very heavy bottom. However, because it's so small, it is going to need to be redrawn a little bit. So just to have a little bit more thickness. So in that, this curve can actually be more like this, which I think lends itself better to the original S shape. And I want this to be thinner. Maybe like that. Go ahead and group it. It's kind of a weird looking number, but I'll take it. All right, so
Conway, how long do you think you could go on destroying people before somebody stops you? Destroying? I destroy?
Group that. Sorry, my ear's been bothering me. I'm not meaning to dig in it. It's just.
I'm holding a new civilization in my hand. A happy world about to be thrown open to a humanity that would die. You or anyone else can stop it.
Thinner. I think that I think that works. It's gonna be our fraction, and also our percent sign. Whoops. That's gonna go down. That's gonna go up. I'm going to actually remove some of the bottom of this one.
Get me the sheriff's office, quick. Hello, Casey. This is a code 3, Lieutenant Houston. Now, look, I want you to notify Reagan. Get the boys out here fast. Yeah, they know where I am. Now, get rolling.
Oops, did not want to duplicate that. So what I'm doing here kind of goes against some of the rules that I've been doing. I'm going to make this actually just the regular O, but shorter. And the reason I'm doing that is because when I get further on in the typeface and I get to the superscript numbers and stuff, they're all gonna probably have their wider bottoms. And it's not necessarily because I think that that's right or anything. I just think that that's gonna be a kind of a, I guess, easier when I get to that part, which I guess is somewhat selfish. And we'll see when I get to that part. I may cut them all, but I feel like it's one of those things, like it's a display typeface at the end of the day. Like how far will it actually be taken, you know, as far as like some of these extra characters, will they actually get used, you know? And the answer is probably not. So that being said, I have an interesting theory about what I'm doing right here. So that is my, the colon, semicolon are going to sit like this, right? Group those. Group that. Move that. Unselect. That is our period centered. Ugh, move that stuff out of the way. This is going to be our bullet point. Just give it a little bit more roundness. And then this is going to be interesting. So this is our Exclamation point. And this.
It's a good thing we have institutions that'll take good care of them for the rest of their lives.
Sorry. I totally didn't realize that that was also going to need fixed, and I didn't think about it till I got here because I realized that
Who is this?
Lieutenant.
Captain Reagan, this is Miss Grace Thomas. She's one of Conway's patients. Grace Thomas? How glad I am to see you, young lady. You had us dragging the bay for 2 days. We almost had you marked off as a suicide. Yeah.
the top was going to function differently.
Lauren Wright.
Because I was originally going to grab this one, and then I was like, wait,
Get on the call right away.
that doesn't make sense either. Let's go ahead and reflect this. We're at an hour already, right? Yeah. So this one, I think we're going to keep going, even though
Will you please take me home?
I'm always saying that I'm going to stop at an hour. I think this will be helpful. It'll be some nice practice before we go and run errands. Uh-oh. The movie ended. We'll just jump right back into the middle.
Yes. Pulse normal. Heartbeat faint but regular. Respiration steady. Reaction.
Go ahead and group those. Everything else is going to go pretty quick. So if you want to hang out, I'm going to say that this is probably another 20 minutes worth of
Can you suggest any further treatment, Charles?
drawing. Gonna have to do a quick import first. So let me go ahead and pause. We'll draw, or actually, let's not do that yet. Let's group these. We're gonna need the dollar sign, and we're gonna need the equal sign. All right, so first things first. Whoops, our C cent symbol. I had originally thought of, all right, well, let's grab this part and this part and start rebuilding characters. And I was like, wait, no, if I go and grab those, it'll actually be kind of more of a pain in the butt because things aren't fully set up yet. Where's my Y? There's my Y. So that should actually be a little thinner. Group. Delete. These can also be a little thinner. Group.
I'm so happy to have you.
Yes, all my experience. I've never seen this before. Natalie, you're almost done.
It's wonderful. When can I go?
Very soon.
Group. Group. Group.
I'll arrange for the paperwork tonight.
And when can I go?
Now I suggest you go to your room, relax until it's done.
All right.
so that's all nothing. So let's go ahead and pause it for a minute, and then we'll come back and finish up the rest of this on the next layer. All right, so it's good that I paused that for a minute there, because the way even this would have went, it does not have the proper stylings that I want. So I want to just delete the top altogether. So this is going to be high. Way up here. And then this is going to be small. That one's going to be up at the top. This one we're just going to delete, because what's actually going to happen here is the bottom of the E is going to be the actual piece that we're going to be using. That looks pretty good. Now let's do our, whoops. Sorry. Let's do our alphabetry, and we'll do it backwards. These are our foreign characters, also known as the beginnings of our multilinguals. That's going to be high up. This is going to reflect. Okay. And this is going to come in a bit. We're going to go ahead and combine this just so I can clean up some of these jagged marks that were created when we were hacking and slashing. This is going to get completely disassembled because I want it to be more like the earlier we had done our French punctuation. I think you probably remember. And I want it to kind of have more of that feel. And the Y currently has this curvature that doesn't really lend itself to that. But these are still going to be pretty high up. They're just a lot more angled. This stuff needs to move over. And that needs to round out that way. So from here on out, things are going to start moving to the left pretty quick. This is actually going to be small. That's going to be small. They're going to come down, group, and this is actually going to come up a little bit just because this bottom heaviness. Same thing here. This normally we just move it down and that'd be that, but we're gonna add a little bit of weight to the bottom just because it's going further down. That I want aligned with my E. Group. This should roll right into that. And similarly, this should also roll right in. So group, 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 and everything there is grouped. So that is that. Now we just have smalls and diacritics. Smalls, like I said earlier, I wasn't going to do a lot of editing here, but I think I actually am. So what we're going to do is first, I'm going to cut that O out. No. You know what? I changed my mind. I'm not sure how to think about these yet. Because the numbers, it's going to be different. Let me just chop these while I think. Go ahead and group that. I think I am just going to leave them like that. Feels weird. They're just superscripts. I'm going to ungroup that. Let's jump into diacritics real quick. All right, so that shape does not work for our first diacritic. The umlaut or the deresis needed to be more square, and that makes sense for diacritics. These are kind of compressed. Diacritics are going quick. I don't think I'm going to do my... I don't know. I will. Because I feel like this is more of an explaining video. I don't necessarily think that in a font like this, it's necessary to make all of my... superscripts kind of function differently, but feel free to agree or disagree in the comments. Send me an email through the contact page of my website. All right, so that would have been done. So what I'm going to say before I do this is I think I'm going to leave these small as the ATM. I like how those are long. I think that because they're not bottom heavy except for the ordinal, it's not going to make much of a difference, but I feel like with my superscripts, these need to lose their bottoms. But I'm not going to try and redraw them from the inside. I'm literally just going to take the bottoms off. We're just going to make them shorter than the TM and the ordinals, which will be interesting. That's not something that I normally do. So and you know what I might do? We'll think about this right now. First things first, we're just going to make these not have the expanded bottom heavy lettering style.
Good morning, Doctor.
I'm going on upstairs. Grace will see it.
And then we will determine, once we pull back, if we want to kind of leave them how they are, or if we want to expand them taller. In a sense, making them kind of the same height as the ordinals. And I think that might be what we actually want to do. That 6 looks terrible. It needs to come up a little bit.
Mark seems worried about
Why?
it. He seems to think she's ill or something.
Nonsense, my dear. She made a perfect recovery, and I released her. I was trained this morning myself. Rather early, so she asked me to make her smile.
I'm so happy.
I think it would make sense to bring them up to size. So they look weird, but I feel like they actually also probably look like they would match with the set. So there you go. About an hour and 20 minutes, and you've got your letters built out for your alphabet. I feel like this 4 needs to be a little thinner. Yeah, and that turned out pretty good. So there you go. That is a wrap on the corpse grinders. Because it's still a font. Whoops. We didn't do lowercase, so all we get is corpse grinders for our lettering. The R's are all the same. You recognize that. The kerning needs to be a little tighter. I'm not going to do a lowercase set for this because I don't know. I don't do lowercase sets that often. But I think that looks pretty decent. And I think if I do 3 alternates for each letter and do it on the third rotation, because the first R is in position 3, the second R is in position 2, and the third R is in position 1, writing out the corpse grinders will leave us with a different R each time. So,
Great. Leave her alone.
and a different E.
That's exactly what I am, Charles. I love you, and I'm not going to have anything come between us.
No, the E's will be the same because they're both in the third position. But yeah, so there you go. Thank you for hanging out. I will talk to you next week at another episode of Horror Font Friday. Have a good weekend. Thanks for hanging out with me.